So my name's Jen. I have a small business called Heilan Bling, and I decoupage stag antlers. So I've got roebuck and red stag, and I just do lots of different designs. Some of them are sort of more Scottish themed, others just more florals, and it's just to do something different with them, really. So it started, oh gosh, it must have been about 8 or 9 years ago, and I had acquired some really nice red stag antlers for my husband for Christmas. And I was dabbling in decoupage at that point, and it was more with furniture and jugs and stuff like that. And I thought, wow, what if I could do something a bit different with these antlers, and maybe I can, put the Mackenzie tartan on them somehow. And so that's what I did. So I spent a fairly frantic sort of Christmas Eve, basically, trying to get Mackenzie tartan silk onto these antlers, and it came out quite well. And so they're up on the wall at the moment. But it's funny because when I look back at those, they just look pretty shocking, really. But I guess it was my first attempt. But that's where the idea started, and it just grew a bit from then. So from working on my table in army accommodation, we now moved to our own house, and I've got a workshop out in the garden, which is great. And so I've actually got the space to do it properly. So to start the process, I have to prepare the skull first, which means I fill in the gaps. You've got little sort of holes above the eye sockets, and I use an epoxy putty, so I fill it all in, smooth it out a bit, not too much because you don't want to lose those sort of ups and downs and all the contours of the skull, and lots of sanding then, and then painting it so it's just a nice neutral white, so I can make the colours pop when I'm using different fabrics. So that's my starting base. So that in itself is probably about 40% of the job. It takes quite a long time to get them where I need them. Then I start with whatever I'm doing. So say it's one of my Liberty patchworks. I've got tons of little Liberty hexagon patches, and they'll just go whoosh, and they'll just get put on fairly rapidly to begin with, and then I have to go back in and fill in all the gaps, and then I'm cutting out little snippets and putting different snippets in on top, and sort of just until it looks right. It's always quite difficult to know sometimes with those ones when to stop. You're like, oh, is that it finished? I think it might be finished, and it's harder to gauge it. The other ones I do, I have different floral designs, and they sort of go on almost in a oneer, and then you've got to fill in around the sides and fill in those gaps. Tartans are very tricky, as you can imagine, trying to keep the tartan flow going up and around the coronets, which is the bit that comes out of the antlers at the top of the skull. So when you're coming around there, it's quite hard. But I just finish off by sort of hand painting in areas which you literally can't decoupage. And then the whole thing usually gets gilded on the inside just with an acrylic gold paint, so you just get nice little gold little hints coming up around the eye sockets and along the purling, which are the bumpy bits on the antlers, and then a couple of coats of varnish, and then off they go to their new home. But the whole process can take, one of the big ones, one of the tartans or a map, you can have at least probably about 30 hours labour on them. They take a pretty long time. Well, I get all of my antlers from a very nice guy in Huntly, and he sources them from estates all over the north of Scotland, which they're all beasts which have been culled as part of a deer management scheme, which we have to do up here because there are so many deer. And yes, they're beautiful, and I can understand with tourists, they might think, oh, it's such a shame, you've got to cull a deer, but unfortunately up in Scotland we've got so many, and I think healthy is 4 deer per square kilometre, and currently we have up to 64 deer per square kilometre, and of course they're eating all the young trees, which we need for climate change, and the ecosystem up here for everything. It affects everything, the squirrels and the pine martens, the lot. I actually really like doing sort of all of them, but in different ways. So the military cap badges, they're good fun, and they always look really impressive on a little full skull roebuck. They look great. So yeah, I enjoy doing those. Then I also enjoy though the colour and the fun of the Liberty patchworks, because you can just go to town with them, do you know what I mean, and just go a bit bonkers. It's difficult, it's hard to know. I mean, I've done lots of different things. I've done a Pink Floyd album, I've done a Tunnocks tea cake, Beano stuff. There's loads of different things that people have wanted, and you're like, oh, that's really cool, that's really fun. Oh yeah, a pink graffiti one, that was fun. but I enjoy getting the commissions from people, which is nearly always like an email or something, and people can have some really cool ideas, and it's fun working with them to then get that idea to actually translate and work on a skull, because some things you just can't do, but we can usually work around and they can get the finished effect that they wanted, and that's always really fun, although a little bit nerve-wracking, because you worry that the customer's got an idea in their head of what it's going to look like, and you're like, oh no, see if I can get it to look as good as the vision they have. So currently I have a website, and they're available online through my website and Instagram.